Hello, friends, and welcome to the PrepWell podcast. I'm your host, Phil Black. And if you have an 8th, 9th, or 10th grader with big aspirations, like the Ivy League, or military service academies like West Point, ROTC, or athletic scholarships, boom, you've come to the right place. My specialty, my superpower, if you will, is preparing families for these competitive programs. I'll teach you what your child should do, when they should do it, and how you can help. So stick around and prepare to out-prepare. Hello, friends, and welcome to the PrepWell podcast. It is with great enthusiasm that I am recording this podcast the day after the second airing of our Shark Tank episode. Mind you, our first airing was only 2 months ago, at the end of season 11, and we were just on again as a rerun to kick off the summer. This is very unusual. Because of what's gone on with COVID-19, the producers at ABC wanted to give high school students across the country one more shot at learning about PrepWell Academy. They realize that many students, and parents for that matter, are in desperate need of guidance as they make their way through high school. And given the huge influx of new PrepWell customers and community members after Friday's show, I thought I'd bring everyone up to speed on this crazy ride. 10 years ago, I started a fitness company called FitDeck that was very successful and profitable and helped get people in better shape, and I applied and got on to Shark Tank. I didn't get a deal on the show, but the product sold so well after the airing that I was able to sell the FitDeck business 6 months later. And it turns out at the end of that episode, even though the Sharks passed on an investment, they invited me back to the tank with my next idea. Well, lo and behold, shortly after selling FitDeck, I started PrepWell Academy. And last year, the Sharks made good on their promise and invited me back to season 11 to pitch PrepWell Academy. And as you saw on the initial airing or on Friday night, when they re-aired it, while I did not get a deal on the show, again, PrepWell Academy has taken off, in part because of COVID-19, which is putting college counseling out of reach to most high school students because of the shutdown. I was thrilled that the show aired again, because we've brought so many more people into the fold. There will be students and parents who now have such a better idea of what they should be doing to prepare themselves for high school, for college, for career, and for their life. And it starts in the summer. The summer is the time for students to set themselves up for success. Because once the school year begins, as you might remember, things move quickly. It's hard to make adjustments. It's hard to pull yourself out and see what's going on while it's happening. So we set students up now during the summer months so that the academic year is much less stressful and crazy. Today, I thought I'd give a high-level overview per grade, from rising freshmen all the way through rising seniors, that answers the question that seems to be on a lot of people's minds. Okay, we've survived the last half of the school year with COVID-19. We made it to the summer. Now what? What do we do now? Of course, I can't cover everything because this would be a 30-hour podcast. That's the whole point of PrepWell Academy. It's impossible to do a one-time data dump and be done. There are so many different facets to the advice, and the timeliness of the advice is so important. This is exactly why Lori Granier was so wrong when she suggested that I package this advice into a one-time purchase, a college admissions officer in a box that includes everything. That doesn't work. Nobody would listen. Nobody would engage. I think it would be a disaster. The key to this advice is that students receive it at just the right time. Not too early, not too late. That's why inside PrepWell Academy, I give this advice in small chunks every single week, when students and parents can digest it. So let's start with rising ninth graders. In the big scheme of things, what should a ninth grader be thinking about? What should they prepare for? Should they be nervous? Here's what they should focus on. Number 1, reading. That's it. Reading. Done. Let's move on. I'm serious. Reading is the number 1 priority. No matter if you're interested in going to the Ivy League or getting an athletic scholarship, or if you're thinking about the military, it's the single most important thing you can do to maintain or grow your intellect and academic promise. I don't care what you read. Blogs, comic books, sci-fi, fantasy, novels, it doesn't matter. Build your reading muscle. In a perfect world, you will eventually become an avid reader who no longer has to force themselves to read, and it just becomes second nature. That's where you want to be. If you're already there, awesome. You're way ahead of the game. And by the way, it's the only way you will be able to score well on the verbal sections of the SAT or ACT. You can't cram for these sections in 11th grade. It's over by then. I know no one will ever tell you this, but I will. I tell my own sons every day, there aren't any sneaky test-taking strategies or tricks that will make up for whether or not you've been an avid reader. I talk to and meet with students a lot. And when they tell me their scores on the verbal section of the SAT or ACT, I immediately, and I mean immediately, know whether or not they like to read. If they don't like to read, crappy verbal score, period, end of story. If they have a strong score, it turns out that they are avid readers. It's like 100%. It's really as simple as that. If you want to get a good score on the verbal portion of the SAT or ACT, you must read and you must start now. Any questions? If you haven't been a big reader up until now, guess what? There's still hope. There is still time for you. If you wait until junior year, it's too late. Sorry. And guess what? Reading is COVID-proof. You can't blame COVID for not being able to read. In fact, I can make the argument that the COVID restrictions should give you more time to read because so many other distractions have been shut down. Take advantage of this time. Okay, I better get on to number 2, or this will in fact turn into a 30-hour podcast. Your second priority, you rising freshman you, is math. I know. What a party pooper. First it's reading, now it's math. What the hell? Excuse my language. What about all the summer fun? Yes, we'll get to the fun. But the truth of the matter is that your life will ultimately be a lot more fun if you know how to do math well. And what better time to either solidify what you learned last year, which is a crazy year, or get ahead for next year? What better time than now? Especially with all the COVID restrictions, take advantage of the downtime. Studies show that it takes students 3 to 4 months in the beginning of the school year to get back to where they left off before the summer because they've forgotten so much and in most cases haven't done anything over the summer. Don't let this be you, especially if you haven't had regular math tutoring or teaching for the last 3 months. It's going to double that. At a minimum, you need to maintain what you learned as a baseline. If you happen to be a go-getter who actually cares about improving, or you aspire to go to a top college or a military academy, you have to get better over the summer, or you will have no shot. No chance. The beauty of this is that there is a free math resource that everyone has heard of and uses and can help you make this happen. Everybody by now has heard of Khan Academy, Khan Academy. You've heard of it. You've likely have an account and you've likely have spent some time with it. Spend 30 minutes a day inside Khan Academy and you will be light years ahead of your peers, period. I go into a lot more detail on these things inside PrepWell Academy, so I'm going to leave it at that for now. Number 3, I'm going to need to move on or I'm going to go way over my time. I'm going to leave it at this. Read and do math. read and do math. As a rising ninth grader, if you did nothing but read and do Khan Academy math, I am thrilled. And in most cases, there's no excuse not to do this. Not money, not COVID, not access, or anything else. Sit in a chair and read and do Khan Academy math problems. Not for 12 hours a day. How about 45 minutes a day for each of those? Can you spare 90 minutes of your extremely busy summer day? I know it sounds ridiculous, but if you're not intentional about this and no one pushes you or challenges you, it likely won't happen. Reading and math are foundational skills that you must put in place in order to have a fighting chance a few years from now, especially if you think you might want to get a chance at the more selective schools, the more competitive programs down the road. Now, of course, there is more to the summer than academics. I don't have time to address all of the things in this podcast. Inside PrepWell Academy, every single week, I cover things like taking care of your body, fitness, working out, sleep, nutrition, how to think about your interests, your passions, your hobbies, how to develop outdoor aptitude, how to create things, how to organize your computer, how to familiarize yourself with what high school will expect of you, how to improve athletically, how to keep your writing skills up, how to master procrastination, how to deal with failure, disappointment, fun recreational trips. But for now, my message to rising ninth graders, when all else fails and you're not sure what to do, repeat after me, read and do math. All right, let's move on to rising sophomores, class of 2023. The truth is, a rising sophomore needs to follow the same plan as the rising freshman, except with more discipline and energy and focus. Reading and math are still the most important pillars, but with age also comes more responsibility and more options, even if full-scale COVID restrictions continue to apply. So what can rising sophomores do beyond upping their game when it comes to math and reading? Of course, there are hundreds of things, but let me highlight two of them. Number one, as a rising sophomore, you should begin to build a vision of who you want to be. What do I mean by that? Well, what do you want to do with your life? Do you want to be an average Joe student who just floats through high school with no plan and little motivation and just assumes that everything will be okay? Or do you want to make something of yourself and do well in high school and make good choices and plan and execute for a bright future? Whether that's going to Princeton or becoming an electrician or a college athlete or an Air Force pilot, whatever it might be, the time to decide is now. This doesn't mean that you're locked into a path, but if you don't start now, you won't even have the option. The competitive programs will be off the table. In case you didn't notice, it's a competitive world out there. And if you aspire to be a part of a selective program down the road, you need to start behaving like somebody worth selecting. And that starts now. So the rising sophomore needs to take some alone time to think about where they want to go. What do you want out of high school? What do you want out of college? Maybe even extend it out to a career. Again, nobody's asking you to sign on the dotted line to become a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer, a teacher, a Marine right now. But we want you to do the things now that will give you those options later on, when maybe you're in a better position to decide what you want to do. No one will have this answer for you. It's your life. And I personally don't think that it's too much pressure to ask a rising sophomore to ask themselves whether or not they want to be a high performer in life. That's really the question that I want every rising sophomore to answer as they begin their summer. Do they want to be a player in the game of life or not? If not, okay, go do whatever unmotivated teens do. Knock yourself out. Go for it. Have a blast. If, on the other hand, you decide that you have one life and you don't want to squander it by playing video games 12 hours a day, then it's time to come up with a plan and to execute that plan. And that begs the question from a motivated teen, okay, I'm in, but what's my plan and how do I execute it? Well, that leads us to number 2, which is execution. How do you execute the plan? In short, the answer is to join and follow PrepWell Academy, where I give you the plan, the strategies, the tactics, and how to execute it for whatever success path you want to take. And I happen to have some experience here because I've planned and executed these plans in many different realms: college, grad school, athletics, military, private sector, public sector, entrepreneurship, family. I know what you need to do to succeed in any of these areas and other areas. All these things can be translated into other realms. The question is, are you willing to execute the plan? That's it. In the first week or 2 of the summer, the only thing I want a rising sophomore to think about is whether or not they care. Whether or not they care to push themselves, to challenge themselves, to be somebody special. If not, okay, no harm, no foul, off you go. Have a great summer. I wish you luck. If you decide that you want in, great, welcome aboard. You have 10 weeks left to set yourself up for success. If you're already enrolled in PrepWell Academy, giddy up. You're good to go. I share with you what to do every single Sunday. If you are not yet enrolled in PrepWell Academy, I suggest you enroll so you can follow and execute the plan as well. Okay, now let's move on to rising juniors, class of 2022. Oh boy, this is a biggie. This is an important summer because it leads into the most challenging year of high school. And the more you can front load during the summer, the less stress you will have during the academic year. Of the many, many things you could concentrate on this summer, I would focus on 2, especially in light of continued COVID restrictions. My advice would be a little bit different if this was a regular summer, but not that much. The 2 things I would focus on the most are, number 1, preparation for the SAT or ACT in the fall of your junior year, and 2, interest development. Let's start with preparing for the SAT or ACT. Despite all the news about test optional this and test optional that, I would ignore it all. Ignore it. It may have some relevance for rising seniors, but it should not affect you, a rising junior, at all. The truth is, standardized test scores help colleges differentiate among students. And for good or for bad, these tests also give students an idea of the range of colleges they should be considering. I don't think these tests are going away anytime soon, certainly not in the next 2 years. Even if every school went test optional, this does not mean that your SAT or ACT score no longer matters. It would still matter a lot. Now, 5 to 10 years down the road, things might be a little bit different, but not anytime soon. So this summer, or a large percentage of this summer, in my opinion, should be devoted to preparing for the SAT or ACT. And when students ask me how much they should prepare, my answer is that it depends on where you're starting from and how well you want to do. And that's why I highly recommend by the end of this month for a rising junior to take a diagnostic SAT and ACT test to see where they're starting from. Once they get these scores and compare them, they are ready to set a study plan in place. And I'm not going to go into any more nitty-gritty details on this strategy because I go into them in great detail in episodes 28 and 32. So please reference those if you want the real goods on SAT or ACT, or email you and I'll set you up with free diagnostic tests. The second thing I would like to focus on is further refining what you're interested in. I spend a lot of time inside PrepWell Academy giving students activities that help them figure out what they like to do. Do they enjoy physics, or music, or design, or leadership, or math, or art, or journalism? What is it that you think you might want to do? Again, this is not a life sentence. This is just an opportunity to develop where you might be headed. Because what you're interested in might dictate what type of college you apply to, what to major in, what type of career you're leaning toward. And if you're really struggling with this, because you seem to like everything, I challenge my students with this question: would you rather study STEM or humanities? Basically, would you rather be in sciences and engineering or English and philosophy? To break it down even further, do you prefer numbers or letters? If we want to be extreme about it. I found that most students have an answer to these basic questions, at least it's a start. And once you determine where you fall on the spectrum, meaning you know exactly what you want to do, or you have a general idea that you like either STEM or humanities, the next thing you do is try to find outlets to pursue that interest. It could be an online course through Coursera or Udemy. It could be book reading, TED Talks, podcasts, volunteer work, online research. And I know COVID has had some impact on the traditional opportunities that we usually mention here, but don't give up. All the things that I listed, I specifically listed because they are COVID proof. I'll repeat them: online courses, reading books, watching TED Talks, listening to podcasts, doing volunteer work, doing online research. There are no excuses not to be able to do any of these, and they're all free. What can you do this summer to help you get a better idea of your interests? Because clarity on this question will help you have a much more productive junior year. And lastly, for all of you rising seniors, what are you to do? Well, of course, for all of you class of 2021, it's go time. It's time to put all of your hard work into your applications and essays. And I'm deep in the weeds right now on this with my private students that I work with. So let me share some highlights. First, if you don't have a strong SAT or ACT score yet, and I hope you do if you're a PrepWeller, because we talked about this 9 months ago, register for as many SAT and ACT tests as you can in August, September, and October. Remember, there's a huge demand because so many people had them canceled. Demand will be high, so you've got to get in line and make sure you have a backup date, at least one. Prepare for the test and do the best you can. Again, do not fall into the trap of thinking test optional means I don't have to take it. You can find an entire podcast devoted to this question. I believe it's episode 28, so tune into that if you're running into some interference there. Second, make sure you have your teachers dialed in for your letters of recommendation. Again, I go deep into this in episode 33. So if you're curious, listen to that episode. Third, refine your target list of schools. Presumably, you've got a tentative list and you're massaging it and researching it, figuring out which are reach and which are safety and which are going to be right in the middle. Continue to refine and research that list. Fourth, finish your college essays before the end of August. Please do that. Who the heck knows what September is going to bring? Get your college essays done. That's a Common App essay. If you have specific supplementary essay questions, if you're applying to a UC school where they have their own separate sets of questions, get all of the brainstorming, the writing, the drafting, the refining. Get it done before September. And lastly, I'll take it even further. Finish your entire application before the end of August. You don't necessarily have to submit it. The earliest that most people have to submit in the early application process is November 1st. So I would take September to have your applications done, sit on them, have people look at them, think a little bit more, refine them, but have the bulk of it done. And with so many traditional programs being canceled, there's no reason that your applications shouldn't be completed by the end of the summer. Most students that I talk to seemingly have a lot of time on their hands still. Make good use of that time. Obviously, I could be here for hours upon hours, but I wanted to touch on the big ticket items to make sure you're heading in the right direction, whether you're a rising 9th grader or 12th grader. And I hope this overview has been helpful. I hope it's armed you with the type of mindset that you should have as you enter this unusual summer. And like most things in life, it's what you make of your circumstances that will determine your success, your happiness, your contentment. So do your best to use the many challenges that COVID has presented to your advantage in any way you can. That's all I've got for you today, folks. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for all those new PrepWellers who came in thanks to the second airing on Shark Tank. Welcome aboard. If you know a parent with an 8th grader, 9th grader, 10th grader, 11th grader who might find this helpful, please share this episode with them. You can do that by finding that small box with a tiny arrow pointing up. That's the share button. Click that button, text your friends, put a little note in there telling them that they might find something interesting in there. Recommend that they take a listen. If you have questions or comments or an idea for an upcoming episode, please reach out to me by email. You can DM me on Instagram, check out my blog, connect with me on Facebook, LinkedIn. I'd love to hear from you. And until next week, goodbye, good luck, and never stop preparing. This podcast is brought to you by PrepWell Academy. PrepWell Academy is my one-of-a-kind online mentoring program that delivers to your 9th or 10th grader a short, highly relevant video from me every week, every Sunday in fact, where I give them a heads up about what they should be thinking about to stay ahead of the game. To get these valuable lessons into your child's hands, please head over to PrepWellAcademy.com and enroll your child today.